as we previously discussed, the main factor in determining whether or not a good is seen as more elastic or inelastic on the supply side is going to be time. So here, that is the main determinant, and we notice that the elasticity of supply rises over time as businesses adjust to their production decisions. There's only one determinant on the supply side, not the 4 or 5 like we had on the demand side. So let's go ahead and put this down. And we do note if we have a longer time period to decide, so a longer time frame, that just tells us that this is going to be seen as a more elastic supply or more elastic good on the supply side. So more elastic supply. So longer time frame to make their decisions about their production, that is going to give them a more elastic supply. However, on the supply side, we need to open up the time frame just a little bit more. So there's actually 3 different time periods we can take a look at when we introduce the supply side. We take a look at the market period, the short run, and the long run. And notice here that all 3 of these time periods have nothing to do with a specific amount of time. So we can't really say that the market period is maybe 1 day, the short run is 1 week, and the long run is 10 years. We really can't do that in economics at all. We have to follow exactly how we lay it out as we put on this particular slide. So the market period is a period so short that both output and the number of firms are fixed. So basically, it's going to be the shortest time period that we take a look at. The number of firms that we have in a particular industry, they're fixed. No new firms can enter, no new firms can exit. And the output that each of these firms is going to bring out to the marketplace, it is also fixed. So they can't increase or decrease how much they want to bring out into the economy. It is going to be a fixed constant number. So the shortest time period we take a look at is the market period. The next longest time period is going to be a short run, a period in which the number of firms does not change, but each firm can adjust output levels. So here we do notice that number of firms does not change, so firms cannot exit, they cannot enter into the industry. We are stuck with the same amount, but each of these firms can actually adjust how much they want to bring out into the economy now. So do they want to bring out 100 units of this good? Do they want to bring out 1,000 units of this good? They can change exactly that. In terms of the short run, we typically go ahead and say that at least one of our factors of production are actually going to be seen as fixed in the short run. Typically in economics, we consider physical capital to be fixed because it's pretty difficult for us to actually make new firms and build up new buildings and all of that in a short amount of time. So here in the short run, we typically say that physical capital, or at least one of our factors of production, is going to be fixed. And then the longest time period we take a look at is going to be the long run, a period long enough for new firms to enter and also for firms to actually exit out of the industry. So all of our main macroeconomic variables in the long run are going to be seen as flexible. So we can see exactly that all the firms, we can adjust those, and exactly how much output each of those firms wants to bring out to the marketplace or economy, we can adjust that as well. So as we go from the market period all the way to the long run, we're going to notice that we have a more elastic supply. So market period, the shortest amount of time, should be the most inelastic. Short run is going to be a little bit more elastic compared to the market period, but the long run is going to be the most elastic supply curve that we have out of all of these. And to show exactly why this is going to be true, let's go ahead and take a look at a particular graph right here. So here, suppose that we take a look at the supply and demand analysis of a particular good. We notice that we have supply MP right here, which is going to be the supply curve in the market period. And because this is the shortest period that we go ahead and take a look at, we do notice that it is perfectly inelastic. So here we have a vertical line at this particular quantity. And it matches up very nicely with what we've already laid out before. If we have a change in demand, we notice that the equilibrium price is going to change. So we have a big percentage change in price, but how much did our quantity change by? It didn't change at all. We have the same exact percentage change in quantity. Basically, quantity Q0 remains at Q0 even when we go from equilibrium A to equilibrium B. So here we still notice that, hey, the price increases a lot, but our quantity does not change, and that is our definition of perfectly inelastic. However, suppose that we introduce the short run, so a little bit of a longer time period compared to the market period. We notice that, hey, this curve is a little bit more flatter, compared to the market period. So it's going to be seen as a little bit more elastic compared to the market period. And we notice that as we go from D0 and SR, the supply SR right here, we notice that as we transition from our next equilibrium, point A, to this point right here, we notice that the percentage change in price increases, but there's also percentage change in quantity as well. So both of these variables are increasing or changing at the same exact time. However, we notice that it is going to be more elastic compared to the market period because our quantity, percentage change in quantity is actually changing in this instance. So for a fairly small percentage change in price, we notice that there's going to be a fairly small percentage change in quantity as well. And that's going to match up with our definition of a little bit more elastic compared to the market period. And then finally here, we take a look at the longest time period, which is going to be the long run. And once again, we have the flattest curve right here. So the long run is going to be the most elastic. So as you notice, as we shift from the market period to the short run to the long run, the curve becomes flatter and flatter. We get more and more elastic as we extend the time period out. And what do we notice from this equilibrium to this particular equilibrium? We notice that prices go from P0 to P3, which is a very, very small increase in prices. But what happens to our quantity? There's a huge increase in quantity from Q0 to Q3, meaning that for a very small percentage change in price, there's a very large percentage change in quantity, which is just the definition of elastic supply. So from all of this, we do notice that based on the time period, it is going to change the shape of our supply curves and exactly how much we're going to be bringing out into the marketplace. So once again, as we shift the time period to a longer time frame, from the market period to the short run to the long run, our supply curves are going to become flatter and flatter and flatter, and that's where we have more elastic supply. Of course, if we go the opposite direction, if we go from the long run to the market period, the curves become steeper and steeper and steeper, and that's where we have even more inelastic supply there. Taking a look at what we've done on the supply side, we want to introduce one sort of condition or one special situation that we have on the supply side that we won't necessarily have on the demand side, and that's going to be the incidence of taxation. So what happens to taxes, or what happens to who bears the burden of a tax within a particular market, and that all depends on the idea of elasticity. We'll go ahead and introduce taxes in our next section.